storytelling. The reason why I got into filmmaking in the first place is because I feel like stories is one of the most, interesting things that is out there, because you can play with stories, you can play with worlds that you create, and you can make people feel things and do things. Essentially, you can manipulate, realities, and I love that. That's why I got hooked on storytelling in the first place. I mean, during the years that I worked with storytelling, it's evolved. From the beginning, I did it in a pretty, primitive way. Everything felt predictable. If I look back on it, I would feel ashamed of it. But you need to go through those things, and you need to experiment with a lot of different types of storytelling to master, a wide range of narrative structures and that sort of thing. And you do that by trying new things. How do you cast something that's a good character then? I started looking at, the research. What do I have? Like, do I have a concept that is a global warming issue, for instance, which is my next film? You start to look at what has been done before and what hasn't been done before. I start to ask myself those questions. I also look at, what type of story embodies the type of visual style that I'm going for. So for my project, I started looking at, okay, so I want to make a story about, global warming. It's an environmental film because, nature is important. That's, the place where I like to be. So I try to find personal stories that isn't, your typical global warming Leonardo DiCaprio type of film, because I'm bored by that. So I started looking at different characters that could, tell that story. Stories that aren't, your typical environmental stories. And then you do a lot of research on that. In the beginning, it's really just fragments, basically. I don't know anything, basically, in the beginning. So I try to piece a story together from the fragments. I try to see like a puzzle, try to fit things together. And eventually, when you do a lot of research, you'll find a strong story. If you don't do the research, you won't find a strong story.
I love you.
We are past that stage.
We are past there. Yeah, I love you. Touch him.
Yeah, I'm a virgin.
Touch him. Yeah, it's 2 days. That was the 2
days. You drained me. I even felt yesterday my balls were hard.
The mic is on.
Between Shira! Shira! Psh! Shira! That dog. Shira! She's looking for small rats. So anyway, the research, it captures everything that you want in a story if you've done it right. If you do it the wrong way, if you don't do enough research, like most people don't, they just go out and they shoot and they don't reevaluate what they're doing, what you end up with is a predictable story that anybody else could have made. So the research, to me, that's everything. And I spend a lot of time researching every topic that I start working on. Not for advertising, because then, it's paid work. Somebody else has done a lot of research. Look at this. Amazing. No, but then when you have done your research correctly, what you end up with is this amazingly strong and captivating narrative. And research can be many things, but I look a lot at articles that can be randomly regarding the topic. A lot of news articles, I mean, New York Times, The New Yorker, a lot of them, they write amazing articles that are international topics that I usually try to, move towards. And for my new film, I started looking at a lot of articles. I also have, my mind set to discovery mode. It can sound a bit weird, but what it essentially means is that every time something pops up in social media, this happens all the time because my mind is set on discovering those things. Every time somebody links to some news article or somebody talks about an issue that's close to my subject, I read that and I've discovered most of my stuff that way. You have to be open. That's a key factor in discovering things. I think that great stories always has a strong character, and they need to be somehow, entertaining and eccentric. You need to be enticed by, the way they are. That's what captivates you, how their personality is. It's just like meeting random people that are interesting in life. You have to have those characters in a movie to make it interesting. I found my characters that I wanted to portray in the new film. I had, a pretty rigorous casting process. I talked to journalists in Stockholm that had already been to the areas where I was going. I hired a casting agent first in one location. That didn't work out. I hired a new one, that worked out. I finally found the person that I was looking for. Like, these things take time and it can cost money, but I've found that I earn enough money to pay for these things. And it's more expensive for me to go to a place and to do the research on location than it is for me to hire a casting person. It doesn't have to be a proper casting agent. It can just be a random filmmaker that lives in the area that can go out and do the research, do the interviews, like pre-interviews, before you get there. That's going to save you a lot of money, and it's going to save you a lot of time when you build the story. Because the character is the most important thing in a story. And that's why I emphasize this, and I can't stress it enough. Storytelling is character, character is story.